Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm excited to welcome you to Beyond SharePoint Forums, Designing Business Processes That Scale. And this session is brought to you by SnapOn Software in partnership with Smarter Consulting. My name is Christian Buckley. I'm a Microsoft MVP and Microsoft Strategic Advisor, and I am your moderator for today's webinar. So we're going to explore today, not just how workflows are built, but how they evolve. So we're going to talk about the mechanics as well as the governance and the operations side of things, and how organizations can design automation that scales sustainably across Microsoft 365. So with that, move us into the slide mode here. There we go. There's the deck. That's what we want to see. So with this, just want to talk about some of the mechanics of the session too. Feel free to ask questions throughout. We'll do our best to answer them in the chat. We've got the team on and trying to answer questions. We do have Q&A at the end. We are going to try and go through and answer any major questions, some common questions that are asked, and anything that gets left unanswered from the chat. And from here, let's have our primary speakers introduce themselves. So Shai.
Hey everyone, Shai Petel. I'm the head of engineering for SnapOn Software.
Excellent. And Jonathan.
I keep it short.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Weaver. I am a Microsoft MVP and a full-time consultant at Smarter Consulting. I've been in the SharePoint and Power Platform space, SharePoint since 2013, Power Platform since 2016 when it was released. And I primarily focus on business process, workflows, automation, getting those pieces of paper out of your hand and putting them into your computer.
Excellent. I think I've known both of you guys for over a decade, well over a decade, probably closer to 15 years.
I kept it too short. I was an MVP for 6 years, and we've met multiple times in those years.
Yeah, many times.
Yep, you came to Kansas City for our conference in 2012.
Oh, yeah. So, Shai, maybe give us a quick intro on SnapOn Software.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm the head of engineering of the SnapOn Software group, which basically combines 3 companies together. So we have the quiz productivity products for Microsoft 365. We have Provision Point, which do governance and excelling governance and auditing. We have Efficiencies SST team, which build products for NetSuite. Combine them all together under one company to really offer a suite of solutions for our customers across all platforms. So today we're in NetSuite, we're in Microsoft 365, we have products for Salesforce, and our primary goal is pretty much to increase your productivity, to have better governance, and to bring tools for power users to be able to do a lot more than the out of the box, complement the out of the box in all our products. We're not here to replace, we're here to enhance.
I think that's a great message that you're going to hear throughout today's webinar as well. Then Jonathan, talk to us about Smarter.
Hi. Thanks, Christian. Smarter Consulting is a Microsoft-focused consulting firm that helps organizations actually get value from their Microsoft 365 subscriptions, not just own the licenses. We specialize in strategic roadmaps, governance and compliance, migrations to modern M365 environments, custom Power Platform development, and last but definitely not least, practical training that drives real adoption. So we're a Microsoft partner with multiple certifications across Teams and Power Platform. You can see the different badges on the screen. So everything I'm sharing today comes from hands-on implementation experience.
Excellent. All right, let's jump into this, kind of the focus of the webinar, what brought most of the people here. I think the Microsoft ecosystem, and by the way, we want this to be conversational, so I'll remind Shai and Jonathan, like, jump in, add your thoughts here, interrupt. It's all good. It's a conversation. But to kind of cue this up, I know it's a lot of text on there on the screen here, but the Microsoft ecosystem, it really does give us these incredibly powerful building blocks. We have SharePoint, of course, Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate. We have the Microsoft 365 suite. We have Copilot. There's so many new stories, new use cases coming up around AI automation. And they make it easy to build automation quickly. There's native workflows in a number of different products in different places, things that you can go and do. But as many of you have experienced, flexibility is great. We all want that. But having flexibility in the tools introduces complexity into the solutions, especially as the number of solutions, the complexity of the solutions we build gets greater. It means that there's more governance, there are consistency issues. How do these things scale? Everybody likes to go build a solution. They often don't think about, now, how will this scale and be supported ongoing? They just want to solve that problem right now.
I want to add one thing to that not a lot of people think about, Christian. So if you do open a SharePoint site or a team and create your own solution, it might be an amazing solution. Another part that's a real big problem for companies is now you have to go and train your team to work with your solution. And it's not always intuitive. So it's like, oh, don't forget to click this button when an item or when an event happens. So there's always that part that people don't think about when they're designing a new system. But when it gets to production and everybody in the team or your team member change, and now you have to retrain them all the time. That's a big headache for a lot of companies.
Especially true on the ones that require manual intervention. Yes, absolutely.
Right.
You're getting ahead of me, Shai. I was going to say that.
Just say throw a ditto in every once in a while. But I think this is one of the things about this. Most organizations, you don't run into problems with that first workflow, anybody's first workflow that's out there. This is about as things get more complex, as you start to better understand, you build stronger workflows, you go in, replace some of those different pieces, and then start realizing I want to put this out. We've got a center of excellence now around that's reviewing these things and providing feedback and looking how can this be shared across this organization, this business unit, or company wide. So the big question isn't, can we build this? You can go build these one-off solutions. The real question is, can we sustain this at scale? And that's really what we want to talk about, that real world challenge to a lot of these problems. So switch slides here. Let's talk about this. This is really why we're here today. Most of us love the Microsoft platform, for all of these reasons. They make it incredibly easy. But as governance gets harder, visibility gets blurrier, and eventually somebody says, wait, who built this? Who's supposed to maintain this now? Or more likely, somebody built it, moved into a different role, or left the company, and now suddenly you inherit that, and you're like, well, wait a second. So I know, Jonathan, because this is a lot of what you do, it's smarter, is like you own this space. You build apps, you build solutions around this. What are the patterns that you see with clients?
So yeah, you're exactly right. Can we build it? Yes. Should we build it? Probably. Can we sustain it? Maybe, hopefully. But what we see is a lot of times there's one person who becomes the workflow expert. And that may be a consultant. It may be an internal resource. But either way, you get like the one or two people that become an expert in the workflow. But 6 months later, after you've built it, nobody wants to touch it. It's fragile. It's scary. Maybe the consultant is gone and now an internal resource has to figure out how to use it and how to update it. We need a little tiny tweak, but I don't want to touch this thing that's running 300 times a week and has 20, 30, 300 steps in it. I don't want to break it. So teams underestimate how complex the things become over time. And the reason for that is not just because it's complex. It's because Microsoft's goal is to let the end users have more control. Let end users build what they need. They've created this no code, low code option, which is intended to create makers or end users building things. And that's great when it's, I need, when a new item comes in, send me an email. Well, okay, that's great. They want to reduce the dependency on IT. It's this cool thing called SharePoint alerts. So in SharePoint, and this is how I'm teeing you up, Shai. I'm teeing you up. I promise.
No, I know. Until something goes wrong, and then they come to you, and then it becomes a bigger problem to solve a lot of times. Yeah,
right.
So definitely, yeah. And those workflows, those workflows become so complex that even if I created it, a lot of times I'm scared making a change in it because I don't know what's going to happen.
I agree. In fact, I got a message this morning from a former client that said, hey, that workflow you built, the users are complaining to me, and he took over. The users are complaining to me that they keep timing out after 28 days. I'm like, well, yeah, it's because it's 4 approvers in line, one after the other. And if any of them takes too long, you hit your 28 days. Guess what? You have to start it over. And they gave us in SharePoint, they gave us rules and they gave us quick steps. And those are great little mini workflows. They're great.
Yeah.
They're just very limited. And if you want them to do anything more than what they can do, then you have to jump out of SharePoint and over into Power Automate. And even the couple of official Power Automate workflows that SharePoint has built in, like reminder workflow or send a request, those are, again, just super basic workflows. And if you want them to do anything meaningful, you have to open Power Automate. And so that's one of the issues that you experience, is that you have to leave SharePoint and change over to Power Automate to do your workflow. And that's part of where it breaks. And then on top of that, once you've built the complexity, so in that example for that workflow, they had three or four levels of approver. And what happens when they come back and go, oh, well, after the second one, we need it to go to this other person before it goes to the third one. Well, now you have to go back in and try and figure out how to squeeze another approval inside in your approval workflow in Power Automate. And the end users aren't going to do that. And they're not built with that logic inside either. They haven't been trained on how to do that. So what happens? The end users say, I'm not handling that. Give it to IT. And IT's like, we didn't build it. You guys built it. And we don't have time or energy or expertise. Or maybe they hand it to a .NET developer or an SAP developer because they're the only people with the development skills to handle it. And it just gets crazy. So what do we need to do? It's fragile. It's complicated. No one wants to untangle it. How do we let end users build complex workflows without them being fragile, without having to hand everything to IT, without creating a monster workflow? And, that's why Smarter Consulting partners with SnapOn. They provide an answer to that complex problem. Shai?
Yeah. So it's funny you should mention it, Jonathan.
Yeah, it's funny how the demo slide just came right up.
Wow.
Yeah. So to be honest, this conversation is a really important conversation I end up having with a lot of customers. And I have a demo here that I want to say is a workflow demo or SOS, SnapOn Software's take on a workflow. But it's vastly different than what you've seen so far. And I want to start from the end in the demo. I want to show you how our workflows behave. And then later on, go over the building block and how to start building them if we have time to go over all those settings. Because what you'll see right now is during our flow or the approval process, I have a little expense report list here. People can submit their requests and upload invoices. Pretty simple. But what you'll see is that the workflows are embedded and a part of our forms. So we're not just giving you a workflow that's built on top or built separately or to the side of your content. We're actually enhancing your content to go beyond the new item, edit item experience and have those workflows, steps, and actions as part of your form So this will tackle two things. First of all, customers don't need to, your end users don't need to figure out what to do where. Everything is in one spot. And then we have that aspect of training. So let me just go over and start running that flow a little bit, and you'll see what I mean by that. So as soon as I'm trying to go and create a new expense report, there's a lot of things in here that would guide me through. So let's say I've never ever used this system before. It's pretty straightforward and pretty self-explanatory. I have my employee name. I'm reporting for myself. Obviously, optionally, I can disable this or hide this, use the author of the item instead. I want to create an expense, and in the expense type, I have a lunch and flight. So, okay, I took a lunch with client, lunch with Jonathan, and took a flight to the event. And I'm gonna accidentally report the flight in tomorrow, and my lunch with you was on the 10th. And I'm gonna put like a $200 here, because why not, right? And like, let's say $450 for the flight. And this is the first time I'm doing an expense report. Nobody trained me on anything. Nobody told me what to do. And I'm just going to try to save this item. So you see, there's the advanced validations that are part of the form, and it'll tell me exactly what to do. And we're not just talking about the required field, yes or no. We are providing the logic and the error message for every validation. So it tells me exactly how to solve the problems. So this is true for the expense report, but the same messages are true for the approvals and for the rejections and for the rest of the workflows. The form will tell me what it needs me to do. So at my role, in my position, I can only spend $50. I'm sorry, Jonathan. Next time I'm taking you to Burger King, I guess. So only $50, that's my limit. And whoopsie here, yeah, obviously flight couldn't be in the future. This was just not paying attention. Gonna fix that and hit save. You'll notice I just have the expense information in here. So let me go ahead and submit that expense report. It's going to validate everything, create that expense report for me. And by default, it's going to be a draft expense report. And I see my items right here, see my expenses. And when I view that item, I can go ahead and add more expenses to it as we go along. Let's say the conference is going on for a few days. I can edit the item and approve and add more expenses to it. Once I'm done, and once I satisfy the rules to be able to submit it, let's say, for example, I say you have to have at least one expense. The amount has to be more than, I don't know, $5. We're not submitting anything less than $5. This little button will appear up here, submit for approval. And this really gets me started into the workflow of the item, the approval workflow that we have here. So as an employee, I come in and click submit for approval. My form is going to behave differently. I'm still, for me, from my perspective, I'm still editing the expense, still editing the item. I have my expense information, and right now I have my approval information with it. You can click on approval, and you can see the approver name is required. So even if I accidentally just try to finish it, it'll tell me, oh, you have to provide an approver. For demo purposes, and I know it doesn't make much sense, I'm going to put myself as the approver here. We can add rules to say you cannot be yourself. We can have a default value set up here. For example, find the employee reporting, find his direct manager and fill that in automatically. And we can even hide it from the user so the user doesn't have to deal with that. But you can see the status column is controlled. It's changed to submitted. So this would be the status after I hit finish. And I was like, please approve my expense, which is optional right now. I don't have to provide comments, and I'm going to hit finish. Doing that edits the item and submits a workflow for me. So you see, once we have server actions or anything that the workflow needs to do in the background, there's this waiting period instead of just saving an item. So this specific workflow is going to send me an email. Let's hold on for that for a second. It's going to send me an email that I submitted an approval request. And you see CC, the employee, which is me, and approval manager is me as well. I'll click the view item as the manager, and I can review it. Now I can send a direct link to the approve or reject actions, or in this case, just for a reviewer to look at the item first, wait for the item to load. I can review my expenses. I can go over to the approval, see if there's any comments here if I'm interested. And then I have the choices that I can take. I can either comment on it, reject it, and approve it. Let me hold on here for a second and switch back to the item. Right now, I have an item that I've submitted for approval, right? What happens when I try to edit that item? Right now, this item is pending. Well, because I'm the approver, I have an approve and reject option. Let me see if I have an item that somebody else needs to approve. Oh, no, but I do have an item that already has been approved. What happens when I try to edit an item that I'm not supposed to edit right now? It's pending approval. You can see that comment action available at the top. That comment action will actually take over the edit behavior of the item. So if I'm going to try to edit the item, it's going to take over and tell me, no, you can't edit the item at this point, at this stage of the approval process. All you can do is you can change the title and maybe add a few comments. This will be true for me opening an item I submitted for approval if I'm not the approver at the same time. And let's say I am the approval, I can use the approval, reject, or comment actions. But if I click edit and I try to edit the item, same thing, they block me and say, at this stage of the item, you can only do one of those three actions. So I'm trying to guide you through my flow, through my workflow. And it does two things. Number one, I guide you through it and I'll let you know what is expected of you to do. And the second thing, it simplifies my workflows. Because instead of having a huge workflow that try to ID and identify what the user wanted to do, we're just asking him what he wants to do, and we're running the workflow based on what he told us. So the user knows if he wants to reject the item or if he wants to approve the item, and our workflows don't have to guess that. By clicking that button, it will trigger the reject workflow without any conditions to trying to figure out what the user tried to do. The conditions apply on when the action is available to me. If I'm the approver, if the status is pending, then the action is going to become available. And by setting that action as a default action, all I'm saying is when the action is available, it will replace and block the edit capability. It's an optional thing. I don't have to block the edit. So now when I'm trying to reject the action, you'll notice if you head over to the approver that the comments are required. So I made that decision that if you want to reject something, you have to tell me why, because I might want to resubmit it, right? But let me try that again. And let me try to approve the item. Based on my policy, when I try to approve an expense, I don't really need any information to be provided. So if I'm going to click approve, you'll see that the comments aren't required. And I can just hit finish right here just for showcasing it. You can see that the comments are no longer required. So again, the form reacts to the action the user is trying to take without trying to guess what he's trying to do. And the user tells us what he wants to do. He gets the right form, he gets the right conditions on the form, and we submit the right workflow at the end. So I'm going to finish this and get this item approved. Now, sometimes you have like soft approvals. They're not really approval processes, but they're actions that need to be taken. For example, in this case, I would have, first of all, let me explain the buttons we see on the screen. Those are what we call user workflows. So a user triggers them. We have another layer of workflows that we call automatic workflows that run automatically on an event. So I would have on this list an event workflow that when an item is updated and set to approved, someone on the accounting team gets an email saying, hey, there's an approved expense that you need to pay. When they go into the item, if I'm a member of that group and I'm able to pay expenses, after I added it to the pay of the employee, I will visit this page and I'll be able to click pay. So as an accountant employee, I'll be able to see that. If I'm not at that group, again, I'll only be able to comment on the expense, asking, hey, what's going on? Can somebody check in on that? So that's the second type of workflows. We have the event-driven one, which are more perhaps familiar for a traditional workflow engine, right? Everything is based on what the user has done, and we automatically update those. Then after that, we have the third type of workflows that are timer-based workflows. What are those good for? So imagine that you submitted an item for approval and I got the email and I forgot about it. We can have a scheduler running on as a workflow to collect all the items that are pending approval anything that's older than a day or 3 days or whatever it is, and we can just send reminders to the approvers, hey, FYI, there's an item waiting for your approval. If we want to escalate, send it to the CEO, or maybe cancel the workflow if nobody responded in over 3 weeks. Again, we will do a timer workflow that runs every day or once a week or every Friday and start cleaning up those workflows that are stuck. The main difference that I would say between those workflows and other state machine workflows is that our workflows are stateless. The workflow starts and ends when I submit an item, click on a button, when the event triggered, and the state of the item is restored within the item itself. Or sometimes I would create a task list that would have a lookup to this item and will all hold the status in the task list. That's where the workflow state remains throughout my process. So that's a little bit a shift in the mindset of how to design those workflows. I will take questions if there's anything specifically you want to know, or I want to show you a few other things.
So Shai, let me jump in for a second. I love the buttons on the form. I love the quick and easiness of the employees being able to go in and just see all the things. But let me put it into perspective from using the standard built-in Microsoft tools. To give all of those different options and the showing and hiding of the fields on the forms to do based on the status, you would either use hundreds of lines of JSON in your edit configuration of the form itself, and you'd be doing a lot of showing and hiding and using JSON. And then the buttons, I'm not even sure that I can add buttons using JSON, but I would be able to make maybe a choice field that says approve or reject as the choice. The alternative is to customize with Power Apps, at which point you've got to build extra parts for the save versus the submit, and then for the different, you've got to put a lot of logic into who's in charge of it, who's responsible for it, whose turn is it, who's logged into it right now, and that will get cumbersome and definitely would not be an end user building that.
And it increases the complexity because there's another tool to learn.
Right.
I mean, we add stuff on top of SharePoint, so it's not everything SharePoint, but most things we do are built on top of the SharePoint features themselves, like the column we created. And we just have a list settings page where I configured everything we just seen in a very intuitive SharePoint-like management page where you don't have to learn a lot of other tools. The changes you make are done on the form itself, and one of the nice things that we offer here is we also offer, like you said, low code, no code. So most of it is no code, but whenever you do have to have a little bit of code to customize things just the way you like them, sometimes you have a special weird calculation that you need to do on a column or something like that. So we offer all those things as well. I mean, I want to show you a little bit of our settings pages. And I want to start with something maybe less popular, but just to showcase that idea. In our form itself, we have this, and this would be the only code that I put in this entire flow that we've just seen. And it's optional, by the way. We have this script editor and style editor that would allow me to customize and change the form a little bit in very easy script designer. So if you do have some capabilities in writing scripts on the page, you can just attach to any one of those events and write a handler in here, and you get great IntelliSense. Like, look at this. We have all our API documented in here, and you get IntelliSense, and you can disable fields or load a lookup field, set a value for a different field with something being selected. All those things are super easy to achieve, and I'm just talking about the features that are not covered within our regular settings pages, which is the no-code part of our solution. So it's important to have both, because sometimes you choose a platform that gives you 80%, sometimes you go with a platform that gives you 90%, but if the 90% doesn't have customizations options, I would go with the 80% because I can deliver a higher end result with an 80% plus customizations rather than a 90% that's locked down. So that's another distinction that allows you to kind of like, tailor the solution specifically to your users.
Absolutely.
All right. Let me show you a little bit on the back end here. Christian, how are we doing for time for demo? Pushing it.
Yeah, we're pushing it. And I know that you've got a couple slides we're going to go through and talk about the latest with the product, the latest release and those things as well. So, maybe like another minute. And then
perfect. Okay, you know what? Let me do that. I'm just going to show you a few highlights on how I set things up, just so you'll know. So the workflows that I've set up, they're all set up in here. You go to workflows, and they're very, very easy to create. Those are all the user-triggered workflows that we have. Those are all the buttons we have. And every one of those buttons is pretty much just a condition on when that button is available, who is it available for. So for the approver is me. I can approve it or reject it, for example. And each and every one of our workflows is basically comprised from a trigger, which could be an event or a button, the conditions when that event runs, and then what kind of actions do we want to run? Update a field item, call a web service, send an email. So that's how we create our workflows. Just to show you real quick, this is our user-triggered workflows. Automatic workflows are pretty much the event-driven one, and the scheduled workflows creates a scheduler in the cloud, which we all know is not a simple task, especially when you're working in Microsoft 365 cloud environment. This allows you to create a really simple and really fast scheduler that runs daily, weekly, at a certain time, and performs a set of actions and queries on your list and run those actions on it. So the bulk of the work was done in the workflows themselves. However, I have done a little bit more work in our default values, which is pretty good. This is what we call dynamic default values. I can have default values with conditions, and that means that when that condition met, that default value will be reset on the form when you edit the item. And one of the conditions that I can use is I can check which user action the user has taken, which means which button did he click, and then set a field value based on that right there on the form before it gets submitted to the server. I can either make it optional, allow the user to change that value, or like you see now, I can make that field disabled and basically force the user to select that value when they click that action. So that's default values. And one of the last things we've seen is our form builder, which is what created my tabs. And in my tabs, I have the approval tab where I can make that show conditionally when the status is not equal draft. So I can create those little tabs. And recently I have an example with a customer that they had to do an approval. There was an approval process on a travel request. And then after the travel request was approved, they had to provide their key takeaways. So we had another tab showing up only after it was approved and after the travel date expired, and he would get an email to fill in his travel takeaways, which he would share with the team. So again, you add more tabs and you say when they're available and when they are required, and you kind of guide the user through your form to build the solution you need, rather than train everyone to do what you wanted.
Very nice. Looks like things the users can click on, they can access them, and they can think through it, as long as they can keep track of the parts and pieces they need.
Yeah,
I don't see any reason why they can't access it and be successful.
Yeah, so Shai, maybe you want to walk us through some of what's been changing with the workflow designer and what your team's been working on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you see, every product that we have is always a work in progress, and we always try to improve. Like, we always have a lot of things we want to do, and we try to prioritize. In this version, we prioritize redoing our workflows designer. And we used to have a place where you create activities separately and create the workflows separately, and then combine them together. In our latest release, you saw the new workflows designer, where I can just go ahead and create a workflow and create the activities I want to associate with it at the same spot. I can create any type of workflow using one simple designer. We have a much better overview of all the workflows I have on the list. Again, those are lessons learned from lists and customer feedback on lists that had already a few workflows set up. And when you want to try to change those workflows or add another step in the middle, we got some feedback around it would be a lot easier to see all the flows that I have and understand them if we create one unified view. So we've done that. Speaking for our future plans, we're always adding more activities types and more workflow types. For example, we're going to add creating PDF directly from a workflow, whereas today our print solution requires you to click on a button. So that will allow you to just convert an item once it's been approved and create your own PDF with your own template. We're adding templates for workflows themselves. So this simple approval process, which we have a KB article on step-by-step how to create it, we want to start creating a library of the most common workflows we have with a one button deploy. So this is coming up in our roadmap. And we're really expanding the reach of our products by adding more types of forms. So now we have public forms that you can have, share and embed on your public website or share with QR code that will trigger an event that creates an item in your list and then kick in your workflow. So for example, if you go to a conference, somebody can scan a QR code publicly without logging in, submit information into your leads list, and that would trigger a workflow internally, and you can start working those leads in your workflows and lists and following up on them. So we've done that. Yeah, I think in terms of workflows and forms, this pretty much encapsulates a lot of the things we've done recently. Now, on top of that, because we connected with, like I said, Provision Point, and we connected with the App Efficiency NetSuite team, we started expanding our product line, and we have more governance products. So, for example, if we're talking about workflows, one of the things you might want to get is you might want to start reporting on your items. You want to start reporting on your workflows, collecting all those, creating reports on sharing links, creating reports on usage within your environment. So one of our newer products that we just released is Audit by Provision Point. You can go ahead to the Teams App Store and install that. It'll allow you to create, as an admin, create a lot of different reports that show and bubble all that information up for you and even send you alerts or be able to take actions on those. So you'll be able to trim down on sharing links and security and stuff like that. We had another major product release, which is what we use internally on all our documentation. We had a documentation, you can see it right here, CMS 365, again, another Teams app. It's available in the Teams App Store and in the SharePoint App Store. Allows you to create a documentation environment. We use it for all our products. We also use it whenever we build demos or we build knowledge base articles or anything like that. We document all our processes there. And on top of that, we started creating products that integrate between different environments. So we have currently a sync product that we're working on that will actually allow people from NetSuite to be able to use and connect information from Microsoft 365 environments to their NetSuite entities. Because you know what, one of the things we discovered is that a lot of customers, even if they don't use Microsoft 365, they do have a license for it. And they might only use it for Teams or for Outlook, but they do have a license for it. So when they come to us as a NetSuite customer, for example, and say, hey, I have this problem with storage or storing files, and I want to store more information about an object in NetSuite, that NetSuite really restricts me. Instead of offering them a solution from the ground up, we're now able to connect that entity with a solution built on Microsoft 365 or on Teams and have them talk to each other and connect to each other. So we had a few successful integrations we've done like that, and we are productized in them right now.
Nice.
Interesting space. Well, I know that kind of bring these things together when we look at workflow maturity across an organization. There's always this complexity line, and so Jonathan and I were kind of talking about this, like in our approach and talking with customers, some of those experiences. It's it's not that every workflow, every solution, your answer is, hey, you need more tools or more process to manage those things. But it is good to understand, what is that line, our capability? Am I crossing that line? So I don't know. When you think of that complexity line, this question for both of you is like, do you think of, here's the types of activities? When you talk about, Jonathan, the fragile nature of these growing solutions, how can people be reflective of their own environments? They're probably well aware if they've crossed that line or not. Like, what does that line look like where you start recommending, you need to look at a more advanced solution?
Yeah. So if you can use like the SharePoint rules or quick steps, please do. But also know that there's a limit. If you've got a team of 30 people that all access this same list or library, you have a limit of 15 rules and 15 quick steps. So if you need to be able to send emails to the individual people based on individual rules and whatnot, you can only have 15 of them for that whole list or library. So at that point, you have to move to another tool. You have to move to something more complex. At the same time, if you can do it without being more complex, please do it without getting into another tool. If you have to, you have to. And it's a matter of, is there a way to take what we have and make it work in an appropriate and proper way? And I'll use a real quick example. One of the two out-of-the-box workflows that's built into every list and library is set a reminder. And it requires a custom date field. But the only thing, it is only for a reminder. And if you need to know 1, 3, 20 days in advance, you can use that one. But if you need it to be overdue, I need to know it's 5 days past due. You can't do that out of the box. So you create, and I wrote the blog post for this like the day after this solution was released. And if you want an overdue, you create the set a reminder workflow, but then you have to go into Power Automate just to change it from a 2 to a -2. That's it. That's all you have to do is change it from 2 to -2. But Microsoft didn't give us that option.
Yeah.
Without going to a tool.
And I always say exactly the same thing. Use the out of the box to the extent that it serves you. And that's why whenever we design products, and it's true throughout our products, they're always designed with the thought in mind that people has used the out of the box. They're not coming to you with a blank slate, not all the time, at least. They already had something that's working, and now they just had to add something to it, like a column permission rule, or like you said, a notification. So we always try to attach on top of whatever you already have, and then start enhancing it a little bit instead of replacing it. So you don't have to go and build a form from the ground up. You have a SharePoint list, you have your form, everything's working fine. You just wanted a timer workflow. No problem, add that. You just wanted column permissions. All right, let's turn on the form and set up a column permission rule. So you don't have to choose either or. You start with the out of the box, and then you go and enhance it when you hit your limit.
Exactly. It's just like if you need to go somewhere, first you decide, am I going to the neighbor's house? I'm going to walk. If I'm going to the gas station at the corner, I might walk, might ride a bike. According to the weather, I might take the car. But if I'm going to across town, I'm going to take a car. Same concept. If you can do it out of the box, please do it out of the box.
Yeah.
And one thing that I like about this solution is that I can stay inside of SharePoint and make all those rules and the forms. And I love your column validation being built into that. If I built that same form, and I'm not going to ask you how many minutes it took you to build that form, but if I built that same form in Power Apps, it's easily a few hours. And for someone who's new and is, we're going to just assume they're vibe coding with Copilot, it's going to take them days and probably a lot of frustration.
Yeah, it definitely gets easier as you do it a lot more, but it's certainly not something that every site owner or every power user can do. I mean, I always give that example just because I love her. We have our sales person, I'm not going to name names, and she's not a technical person, but I can go and I demo something like that to her, and she's able to go ahead and create those and showcase them to customers and answer a few questions. Um, I'm not sure if she'll be able to do the same thing with a Power Automate or with a Power App.
Right.
You know, those are a little bit more complex.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that it's not necessarily drag and drop, but it's right there on the screen. Just, and it walks you through doing it.
Yeah.
You know, tell me what you need. We'll do it. But I will question, are you putting AI in front of it at some point? Is that on the roadmap?
Yes. We have on our product team, on our expanded, I'd say, company, we have an AI product, and we're embedding it to each and every one of our products. So when we talked about audit, AI will be able to create those reports for you intelligently and report on things that are odd or you should be aware of, even if you didn't think about that. When we talk about our documentation, so our documentation, which is built in SharePoint, markdown files in a SharePoint library, already accessible through the SharePoint search, but the AI agent will be able to set them as content for my company. So when I search on, hey, how do I build an approval workflow? You'll be able to read that and give me the information based on my content. And we're baking that into our forms and workflows, both to be able to trigger workflows. So you'll be able to just chat with the bot and it'll tell you something that one of your employees submitted a request. And you'll just say, can you go ahead and approve it for me? And it'll be able to trigger that workflow for you, all the way to be able to create those settings for you. So as a helper for filling information, triggering those workflows, and creating those workflows for you or updating them.
Very nice.
So I know, gentlemen, we are over time here, and so really appreciate your input for the demo, Shai, on that as well. For anybody, if you had a question that wasn't answered, then we're going to try to follow up and produce that. We've got some other blog content and things coming out there where we'll answer some of the questions. We've got a joint ebook that we're releasing, and everyone who registered will get a copy of that as well sent to them once that's completed. And so with that, thank you to both Shai and Jonathan. Thank you all for joining us today. We appreciate you spending your time with us. We know everyone has a choice with who they fly with, or whatever the airlines say these days. But we hope that this session gave you some practical ideas that you can take back to your teams. So everybody have the great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for having us, Christian.
Thank you.